Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another Bulletproof for BJJ podcast. I am JT.
Hey guys, I'm Joey.
And today, guys, we're asking the question, can you touch your toes? This is an important thing, guys. It sounds basic, doesn't it? But there's a lot of people out there, they're trying to do birimbolos, they're trying to kiss the dragon, take the back. But can you touch your toes? A lot of our jiu-jitsu brethren cannot. So what we're going to do today is we're going to drill down into different things that can help you get there, because a lot of people just don't know how, and the importance of certain aspects of mobility and flexibility training, which are going to get you there faster. So I would say that I am the more restricted of the two of us, Joe, in this region of the forward fold, as we refer to it. And I've had my challenges, but it's something I work on all the time. Now I can touch my toes; that's not a problem. But you've taken it a step further, haven't you, Joe? You've taken the forward fold to the next level in a lot of ways.
Yeah, back in the day when I was deep into my movement training, there was a bit of a challenge there. It was like a standard, but it's an extreme standard, but it's the head to toe.
Oof,
so
that is.
Yeah, can you lock your leg out, grab your foot, and then connect your forehead to your toes?
My God,
I know
it's full on.
I mean, and so it is kind of full on, and I think
you achieved that.
I got it, yeah. And I'll be honest, I reckon I'm probably about, if I did it cold now, I'm probably about a fist width away.
That's still good, man. That's crazy.
Well, that's what I mean. I think I have a bit of a predisposition there because I got short legs.
Sure.
You can speak to that.
I can. Mine are shorter.
Which if you're of an average, if you have short legs, then typically you have a longer torso proportionally, yes, which helps you in that.
It does.
If you were like our mate Adam Childs, where you got legs up to your fucking armpits,
no,
man, you're not getting your forehead to that toe.
No, not at all.
So in any case, yeah, it's a bit of an old, it's a bit of a standard, a bit of a thing in the game, in the movement game, is a bit of a kung fu thing.
Yes.
And it involved a really high volume approach to developing it, which was basically ballistic stretching, so almost kind of bouncing into the position for a couple of hundred repetitions every day.
Woof.
And it's like, do it every day until you get it. And it's going to take you maybe a few months or whatever. Took me, I don't know, 6 weeks.
Wow.
Which, yeah.
That's quite quick.
It's quite quick. And again, goes back to I'm kind of blessed with mobility in certain ranges,
yeah,
I already have a pretty decent baseline.
Sure.
So for whatever reason, yeah, it was cool.
But for those people out there who can barely reach past their kneecaps and they want to get around modern jiu-jitsu, and this is the discussion, guys, because so many more people are trying to invert, so many more people are just trying to up their guard game. Being able to touch your toes is just a basic thing that you need to be able to do. So how do we go from not being able to touch our toes, can barely lean forward without getting excruciating pain, to actually getting there? What are the steps?
Before that, I think one of the beautiful things about jiu-jitsu is that you can play the game no matter what kind of body you got.
Of course.
Right? And because there's going to be a lot of people out there that play this, like think about it, inversions, K-guard,
yep,
birimbolos, like all of these things that didn't really exist when we were coming up as like white, blue, purple belts.
No.
So the game back then was just like take them down, heavy pressure,
smash them,
get on top and then submit them, right?
Yep.
So that game, that old school game, doesn't require mobility.
No.
Which you could say is a strength of it, because it's like you can teach it to your dad.
Sure.
Right? He's got shit mechanics, busted old knees and a stiff spine. He can make it work. The new game, like we're saying, like this new stuff requires more mobility.
Definitely.
There will be people listening that play the new game, but also can't touch their toes. And I guess...
But my question then is, how well are you playing it, and are you setting yourself up for injury?
Well, that's exactly right. And I think it's important to point out, yeah, you can do it. There's ways around that's the beauty of your body, is you can move around these inefficiencies in your mobility or in your strength. But do you pay a price for it down the track? We say, yes, you do.
Yes, sir.
And, is there also like a level of efficiency that you're like, are you operating inefficiently? So every time you invert, every time you get stacked, it's like placing all this pressure on your lower back, your discs are getting compressed, your neck's getting jacked. Whereas if you had a bit more surplus, a bit more range to move in and out of, then all of a sudden you're a bit more comfortable in that position. The load is not being directed into a few key areas. It's being dispersed nicely.
Yes.
So really it's like, okay, yeah, how do we make you more efficient? How do we upgrade the components of your vehicle so that it's not just a big engine in a piece of shit car, but it's like got pretty good wheels, sweet handlebar, fucking steering wheel. You know what I mean? Like the components are good.
Of course.
So that's kind of what we're getting at.
Yeah. And we have we're going to reference this, guys, because this is an important text. When I first started in Taekwondo, stretching is a big deal. And we actually used to do a lot. Like I would say I would be doing an hour a day, minimum. And when I was training more at an elite level, like national, international level, I was doing anywhere from 2 to 3 hours of flexibility work a day, PNF, dynamic, static, because kicking above your head was like super important. And we have a really good text here. We have the kind of, I guess, the OG original text, Stretching Scientifically. Amazing book. And Joey's pulled it from the shelf because this is like really important. And there's a little piece of information here we want to share with you.
The picture on the front of this book is the author, Thomas Kurz, who's a famous Russian sports scientist from 80s, 90s. He's written a couple of books, both incredible. He's doing side splits between 2 chairs. And then he's holding a baby on his shoulder and he's looking at the baby making a cheesy smile.
Originally, there was him and possibly his partner or some model sitting on his hip.
That's right.
Which is next level.
But the point of this, I thought I'd read it because I just wanted to clarify a couple of things in my mind coming into this episode. I thought, you know what? The introduction here is very on point, and I think that this is good for people to know. So we talk about flexibility, mobility. Really, at the end of the day, it's the same shit. Right. And I say that coming from this realm of picking apart, no, but this is this, and mobility is when you add strength, and it's like, whatever. If you are doing strength training and you are doing some stretching, different kinds, movement-based stretching, like dynamic stuff, static stretching, PNF, you are getting strength and you are getting range as a mix every other day
in different doses.
Yeah,
sometimes more strength, sometimes more flexibility.
Exactly,
mobility.
And people hang shit on like static stretching, but it's like because it's like, well, but you need to build strength there. It's like, well, what if I did static stretching yesterday and then today I'm strengthening those muscles? Does that count, or does it have to be at the same time, or is there a 30-minute window?
Sure.
Right. So it's like if you get it done, it's the same shit. Anyway, it says here. The essence of flexibility training presented in this book is the simultaneous development of strength and flexibility, working with your body, especially the nervous system, for full flexibility with no warm-up, right?
Right.
And this is very much forms the basis of our mobility program.
Yes.
The method of accomplishing these goals can be summed up in a single paragraph. Tense your muscles prior to relaxing and stretching them, and tense them every time when you want to increase your range of motion during a stretch. To simultaneously develop strength and flexibility, tense your muscles while they are fully stretched. As your strength in stretched positions increases, so does your range of motion and your ability to use increasingly greater range of motion without a warm-up. To develop the ability to instantaneously show full flexibility through dynamic movements, do dynamic stretches for a few minutes twice a day. That is all. The rest are details. But these details make all the difference between effective training and fruitless drudgery. That is what the rest of this book is about.
That's great.
Fruitless drudgery, right? This is the person who's on the mats after training, like just trying to touch their toes and doing the same fucking stretches every day of the week and never getting any more flexible.
Not improving.
No, and that's I think why I felt like I wanted to read that, because stretching, as most people know it, is fruitless drudgery.
Yeah, I agree with this. And that's the thing, having spent so much time working on it, it's very easy for me to, it's way easier to maintain than to attain. So when you're coming from a place of like, my God, yeah, sure, it sounds good, guys, but I can't even, bend over without, feeling my back hurt or my calves on fire and all this stuff. Because I've been doing a certain degree of flexibility training, mobility training almost my entire life. If I don't stretch for a week or two, it only takes me a session or two and I feel great. Like I'm back.
Yeah.
And this is true of weightlifting as well. So what we want to do is really get you guys in the habit of doing this thing regularly. It's a skill. You need to practice this movement skill. So let's start from the beginning, Joe. We've got people who are hearing this and they're like, yeah, right, I'd love to touch my toes. How do I start this process of unlocking my body and feeling better when I do jiu-jitsu? Where should they start for the forward fold position?
All right. So there's the very first place to start for me, and this is like beginning of your session, is stretching the calves.
Oh yeah.
Calf stretching, right? Really basic stuff, but something that we don't often connect in our minds is when we are going for this forward fold position, you feel a lot of tension like in the back of the knee. Sometimes it's more in the belly of the hamstring.
My God. This is me. This is me. I feel it the worst.
And that back of the knee, like that's your hamstring. It's just more down towards the tendons where the muscle joins the bone. So it's crossing the knee joint there, and it's like, fuck, this really hurts. What we don't think is that there's this structure running through the body, the fascia, which connects all of our muscles together. And this fascia through the back line of the body starts at the bottom of your foot, so tip of your toes, goes on the whole bottom of the foot, up the heel, up the calf, back of the leg, butt, and then it even wraps around up over your head to the front, like just above your eyebrows. Now, we don't need to stretch that area, right? You get that stretch when someone's cross-facing you enough. Yeah. But importantly, the calves are a really common like handbrake to access the hamstrings.
Yes.
So this was taught to me by a mobility coach, Emmett Lewis, that I had for a long time. He's like, anytime you want to work on your hamstring flexibility, stretch your calves first. And we recommend this all the time to our people, and it works wonders. So you can try this for yourself. You can like just do a simple toe touch test. Keep your legs locked, standing up straight, reach down. How far can you go? And then stretch both of your calves one leg at a time. Just hang out off like a step or the gutter or something. Like just drop your heel down, keep your leg straight. Stretch 2 sets of 90 seconds on each side, and then retest.
Oh,
and you will notice a difference.
Huge difference. Yeah. And I can totally speak to this. Like I feel like my calves are one of my biggest limitations because my hamstrings, the place that I feel the worst in a forward fold position is calves. Straight away.
You feel it there.
I feel calves, not hamstrings. Lower back's okay.
It's got meaty calves too, so it's a lot of surface area for discomfort.
Just a lot of years of skipping, guys. Like for any of you out there who did striking, and you know skipping and running is a big part of that, and then you've come to jiu-jitsu and you're like, yeah, I love jiu-jitsu. Yeah, forget striking. I'm a grappler now. You're going to have some jacked up calves because it helps to be able to bounce around on your toes and be agile and stuff. But that doesn't help you when you're trying to squat or trying to forward fold or invert. So I actually have to spend a lot of time working on my calves but before I can actually even feel my hamstrings in those positions. And then what's the next step? We've loosened up our calves. We're getting a little bit better. What do you feel is the entry point? Because I tend to skip ahead. Like I tend to go, right, let's put our forehead on our knees. But there's some in-between steps, isn't there?
Yeah, I think the next thing is to develop strength through those muscles. Because here's the thing, when you reach forward and try and touch your toes, you actually got quite a bit of body weight behind that. And so you're kind of hanging the weight of your torso off the hamstrings.
Yeah.
And as we know, and for folks maybe who don't know, stretching or flexibility is a neurological thing. Your body won't allow you to go into certain ranges of motion or certain positions if it doesn't feel confident that you're strong enough to be there. So what you process as, these tissues aren't long enough, like I need to stretch them out, that's not the case. It's a case of your nervous system applying a handbrake because it thinks you're going to hurt yourself.
Whoa. Yeah, don't go there. Don't mess yourself up.
Yeah, so we need to strengthen the hamstrings, strengthen the calf muscles, and all those muscles of the back line through simple exercises. 2 favorites that we use and that we have in our program are single leg Romanian deadlifts or Romanian deadlifts, right?
Sure.
Doesn't have to be single leg. And the stride stance good morning.
Yes.
Which is standing on one leg, you got your other leg placed just slightly behind, it's giving you a small amount of assistance.
Yep.
And then keeping a really like extended spine, like almost arched through the lower back. You're hinging forward into this like forward fold position, but keeping a nice straight back. And you're getting this aggressive stretch through the hamstring.
It's intense.
But there's actually a lot of load in it because the majority of your body weight's now in that one leg. So it's actually it's a real nice mix between strength and flexibility. These drills, because you have the potent mix of strength and stretching, I think are the really good starting points.
Yeah.
Particularly for, and this would be most of our listeners, if you're training jiu-jitsu and you're tight, you probably are quite strong because you train jiu-jitsu. It requires you to be inherently strong. So you've got a lot of like layers of strength and dense tissue to work through in order to access some of this stuff. So, if we just get you to stretch your hamstrings, it's not enough. Like you need a hammer.
Yeah.
And drills like this are the hammer, in my opinion.
They are. I agree with you. And look, it might, for some of you out there, you might have a bit more weight around the torso. For some of you out there, you may not have as much. But that said, if you cannot do these body weight movements, which is what we're talking about here, they're essentially just your body weight, you shouldn't be chucking weight on your back. You know, like plenty of you out there will be like, I want to do a back squat. Yeah, okay, yeah, sure. And plenty of you out there go, man, I want a deadlift. Yeah, they are all great movements and there are ways to train those. But if we consider that you are actually practicing a level of bodily control, it's good for you to start at the bottom. Just start at the simplest level. And both these movements, which are part of the Bulletproof for BJJ program, don't require any equipment. It's really simple. You could be doing them right now. So if you're like unsure of these movements, the videos are on the program. And the next stage on this, like let's say people have already been doing these movements and they're like, yeah, I'm better than I was, but they're halfway down their shins. How do they go from not quite getting there to the next step, which is touching the toes?
Yeah, so that last bit, it's like 2 sets of 90 seconds on the calves, 3 sets of 10 on the stride stance. Good morning. 3 sets on each leg. Do 10 reps. Hold the last rep 10 seconds. You've done that. You've made some gains, but you want more. It's like, all right, how do I take it to the next step? I suppose one of the drills that we use a lot and that we're big supporters of is the Jefferson curl.
Yes, indeed.
And I think that the Jefferson curl is a really nice progression of like the stride stance. Good morning. Mm-hmm. It's adding load and it's adding movement into your hamstrings and through this whole back line of the body. And it's taking you to that position, that end range position where you're really at this sort of the limit of your toe touch or your forward fold, but you are having to find ways to produce force there and create tension in the position, which is strength, right? And that's what's going to make you more flexible. The Jefferson curl is a big one.
Yeah, and we're not talking about you guys might have jumped on YouTube and just Googled Jefferson curl, and you're going to see some crazy business. Like there are some really strong mobile people out there, but we're not saying you should go pick up a barbell and try and hang 60 kilos off your torso. That is a certain way to do yourself a mischief. We're talking about a very small amount of load, you know, a light kettlebell or a dumbbell between your two hands, whatever you kind of have close to your reach. And this leads us into the next part of this conversation, which is being able to, we're talking about using your abdominals and your quads to draw down into the position. We're not just hanging the weight off those muscles. Like, yeah, we're putting a little bit of load there so they can work gradually with control through this range of motion, which is something you may have never done. But also, and this is the thing that kills me, is when you get to the end of that range, whatever that is for you, to find more range by contracting your abdominals, by switching on your quads, by not just hanging out there and just weathering the storm and being like, oh, this is killing me. It's like, no, I'm actively drawing into the position. This is something which is very helpful. And we've talked about this before, Joe.
Yeah. So again, going back to that idea and going back to what Thomas said, like strength and flexibility trained together.
Yes.
This is the combo, right? And so again, going back to that simplified view that a lot of people have of flexibility, it's like, oh, I just have to stretch those things out and then they get longer and then I'm more flexible. That's actually really problematic because if you think about that, you're just creating laxity. Yes. And laxity is not good for an athletic person, right?
Not at all.
So I will use the bicep and the tricep as a good example of this. Imagine, straighten your arm. If you're listening to this, you can hold your arm out in front of you right now. Straighten your arm and imagine that your tricep is really tight and you want to stretch your tricep. So to stretch the tricep, you're going to flex the elbow. So you're going to pull your forearm, like you're going to do a bicep curl, right? JT is showing us what that looks like. He's maybe tried it once or twice before. And you're going to pull your wrist or your forearm towards your shoulder, right? So now your elbow's bent. Your tricep is stretching here. Now, most people won't feel this in their tricep, but it is stretching. So straight arm, it's contracted, and then flex the bicep. You get what I mean. So what's allowing me to do that? Well, it's a contraction through my bicep that is pulling my wrist towards my shoulder. So it's a contraction of the bicep that is lengthening the tricep,
yes,
allowing that to happen. So when we think about the Jefferson curl, And if you don't know the Jefferson curl, imagine you're just sitting on the ground, both legs out straight, and then you're reaching forward to touch your toes. That visualization will work. So instead of just thinking about hanging this weight or stretching so that the hamstrings and the calves and whatever are getting tugged on, think about the muscles on the other side of the joint, which in this case is not the bicep, but it's your quadriceps, your hip flexors, and your abs. Think about those muscles contracting or shortening in order to pull your body into this fold position. Now we start to take our intention or our focus off the fact that the back of the body is stretching, but we start to focus on this shortening of the muscles on the opposite side of the joint. The result of that is that it allows the nervous system to see, oh, I'm actually quite strong here because the body's producing force in this range of motion. Pardon me. In which case, thank you. In which case, the body says, oh, well, let's go a little bit deeper. Yeah. And this is that idea. You're in that position, you're creating force, and then the body's letting you go a little bit deeper. So when we're doing the Jefferson curl, as a more advanced kind of approach to it, something that we try to get people to incorporate into it once they're sort of just comfortable with the basics of the movement. It's like, all right, now we want you to focus on contracting quads, hip flexors, and abs in that end range position as you push the kettlebell towards the floor, and you'll usually hold that for 10 seconds. Yeah. Relax and do a few reps per set.
That's active. So you're not just hanging out there, guys. And this is the thing we want to, and this is a term I actually learned from Joe, which is this idea of end range closing, is getting a degree of muscle contraction when you hit the end of your range. And you're actually working there, guys. I sweat so much when I do this. Like, it's hard work. And the other thing is too, this idea of contracting the opposite group of muscles so that you can get the group of muscles you're stretching to go further is called reciprocal inhibition. So by contracting the abs, contracting the quads, contracting the hip flexors, those other muscles will allow more range. And this is actually it's not secret, but it's just something we don't do because you will feel a greater intensity of stretch. You contract your abdominals and you contract your quads, man, you are going to feel it through your back, through your hammies, through your calves. I know I do. When I get to that point, I'm like, it'll take me there, but God, this is intense.
Yeah, it's full on. Sometimes I'll get a cramp.
Yeah, I get in my quads.
Yeah, and you're like, oh shit, but but it's the cramp is in a way it's good. It's like it means you're turning it on.
Yeah.
So you kind of just have to work with it.
And I think this is going to take us to the next step, guys, because this is the forward fold as a position is an important part of the new Bulletproof for BJJ standards. And this is something that we really want you guys to master. So touching your toes is pretty basic. And if you can't get there, that's okay. You can get there, and we have a method that will help you get there. But another thing on top of this is something I just wanted to touch on, Joe, is this idea of supersetting mobility exercise with an active work exercise.
Strength exercise.
Strength-based exercise. And look, like we're saying, we're blurring the lines a little bit here, but it's just so we can separate it for you guys. I found pairing a strength movement with another movement which helps disengage the handbrake on that movement very helpful. Like I find by the end of that combo, so let me highlight that to you guys. So for example, and Joe might have a different example, doing a toes to bar as a movement to really engage your abdominals and your hip flexors and your quads.
So like hanging from the bar. Raising the straight legs up, touch the bar.
Keeping your legs straight, touching your toes to the bar with control, no swing. Then doing a set of those and then pairing that with, say, a Jefferson curl, I find that to be, I can find more range when I go to the Jefferson because my abs and my quads are fired up. So when I go to lower into the position, those muscles are firing and ready to go. And I actually find I can draw down in this position a bit more. Do you have any examples like that, Joe?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess like hopefully for folks listening, they can see the parallel between those two movements, right? One, like they both involve the body folding in half or piking. And that is, obviously it's using contraction of the muscles on the front of the body and then lengthening of the muscles on the back. I suppose like we kind of like to use that in our program where possible because it allows you it allows you to make that small window of training. So it's like, I'm going to do 3 sets of Jefferson curls today, and I'm going to do whatever, 4 or 5 sets of toes to bar, or, you know, some kind of variation thereof. It allows you to make both of those exercises more potent because they are complementary to each other.
They are.
Now, it doesn't necessarily make it easier. It's fucking hard, right? But in our opinion, for jiu-jitsu folk like us, our main focus is spending time on the mats. So the time spent in the gym should be used as efficiently as possible, which means that over the course of the week, it should be as little time as needed to produce the result that I want.
Yeah.
And so that's why we superset like a mobility and a strength drill wherever possible, so that 1, you get more out of both drills, but 2, you get more out of the workout. So looking at it from a wider perspective.
Yeah, the minimum effective dose, guys. Now that comes from, you know, the world of supplementation and science and drug testing and things.
I've always used it talking about acai. You know what I mean? Because that shit's expensive when you get the good stuff. So it's like, well, what's the minimum effective dose here to really get the results I need from this bowl of delicious acai?
Well, I couldn't say for sure. It depends on if they're using straight guarana syrup or if you've got that sweetened condensed milk on top. You know, you're having that watered down acai. No,
That's
guys.
the Aussie acai.
The Aussie acai. If you go to Rio, they ain't watering down nothing.
That's the Asahi.
Oh, dear, guys. Anyway, what I was going to say is in regards to this, we had a guy post on the community recently who sounds like a tough guy, fit guy. He's a brown belt. He's done a lot of training, ex-Navy guy, loves to smash it up, and also has done CrossFit for a long time. And he said, guys, I'm worried. He's only done 2 days of the program, but he's like, I think I might slide back. Like my fitness will fall away on me if I'm doing this. It's only 2 days a week. Oh, he was all nerving.
It's not full on enough.
It's not enough.
Heavy enough. Yeah.
But had said, I have a litany of injuries.
Yeah.
I can't function as well as I want to. I'm in pain.
And I'm like a massive overachiever and I fuck myself up.
Yeah. And it's like, don't get me wrong, guys. I definitely always feel the urge to do more. But I think what's important for you guys, and this is what we're speaking to here when we're talking about combining a degree of mobility with your strength work and fitting it all in, is if you do it effectively and you do it to a good level of intensity, you don't need more than 45 minutes an hour. You know, like, and if you've got other stuff going on in your life, which I'm sure you do, if you're homeschooling your kids or you're trying to Zoom call your boss or you've got all different stuff going on in your life, you've got a young kid, you're not sleeping, whatever it might be, 2 days a week, if you do it right, that is really all you need, in truth. Maybe with a few sprinklings of other things like a mobility session here, maybe a bit of accessory work there. But ideally, we have set it up that if you use your time well, this is the minimum effective dose.
Yeah, I think there's a real thing in training, and this happens to all of us. And you could, we're kind of going through this a bit ourselves now, where, you know, like when you're into training, and particularly anyone that's come from a military background,
sure,
or, you know, maybe you're into CrossFit real hard or whatever, maybe it's just from jiu-jitsu, but you go real hard when you're in your 20s, but you just fucking throw down, right?
Yep.
Put your body on the line, lift real heavy, train 5 days a week, fucking push it. And then you usually get to like somewhere in your 30s and start to get some little niggling injuries. And then you're like, just got to find the right solution so I can keep pushing hard.
Yeah.
And it's like you keep bashing your head against this wall, right? Proverbial wall for a while, until most people just throw the towel in because it's like, oh, well, I can't maintain my training anymore. Rather than going, you know what, maybe that approach that I was taking is no longer sustainable.
Yep.
And maybe I need to change my perspective on this thing a little bit, pull back on the intensity and maybe the high frequency, and go for something that is more sustainable. And then that means, like, for jiu-jitsu players, right, for people like us, it's like, well, how are you actually rolling? What style of jiu-jitsu are you playing? That probably has to start to change a little bit too.
Yeah.
Because all of a sudden you're rolling with people who are not as, you know, they're fucking 10, 15, 20 years younger than you, but they're not restricted by their lack of athleticism or declining testosterone or lack of sleep.
Any of that.
Right? Like, and so it's just part of this greater perspective shift, which is like, okay, I've got to be a bit smarter about this.
Yep.
And so I find, like, speaking to that guy's point, and for so many people I've met and just sort of trained with over the years, it's like, The ones that don't see that,
They don't adapt.
and don't adapt are the ones that constantly struggle with injuries and questioning whether I can continue to do this thing I love. And the ones that adapt to it, great.
Yes.
No problem. Like they find this path of least resistance, and they,
Yeah. What would this look like if it was easy? It doesn't all have to be the challenge of your lifetime. You don't have to always be in pain. Look, this is where I think we have to separate, guys, the idea of peak performance to optimal performance. Like, what is something where you are performing at an optimum, which is your performance is like really good. It may not be world championship good, but you can show up every day. You can play with your kids. You don't feel completely wrecked at the end of the week, and you're enjoying what you're doing. It's not this love-hate relationship like, I'm on fire, I'm better than everyone. Oh, I hate myself, I can't even train, I'm at home crippled. Like, it's not that, guys. It's really what we are trying to put across. And even though this might sound, it's not even that it's not sexy. It's just not pushed in culture, right? It's not on Instagram. It's not on Facebook. You know, it's not the glory work. It's the things that you do to look after yourself. And the idea of looking after yourself and doing the thing that is right for you, which is doing enough to keep you healthy, and then just enjoy the thing that you do, is not promoted in our culture, because we all want to celebrate the Michael Jordans and the Lance Armstrongs and all these top performers. But then when you look at it, it cannot be sustained. When you hit a peak, the only way from there is down. And that's not what we want for you guys. We want you guys to stay in the game, feel fit and healthy, and at least be able to touch your toes, right?
Yeah, like touching the toes, you could consider that like, a basic human goal.
Yeah.
Like, cool. It'd be cool if you could. If you can't, don't feel bad, but you should work on it.
Yeah.
Follow the stuff we've given you. Stretch your calves, do some of the stride stance good mornings, and then in time, start to connect with the Jefferson curl. We'll be like our new updated program is going to lay out a pathway for all of this, but in simple terms, you can go and get started on that stuff right away.
Definitely.
If you are a user of our program, we have our forward fold turbocharger, which is in the mobility section, and that includes a really in-depth video where we discuss 3 different sort of progressive approaches to developing the forward fold using the Jefferson curl. It's all in there, and I think like for a lot of people, unlocking that back line of the body it fucking enhances life.
It's huge.
Because it really is, in the sport we play, it's hugely restrictive. Like not even if you want to, not even if you're trying to play the new style game, but if you're just trying to like be able to squat well and do good exercise and move efficiently and forward rolls and backward rolls, it's like that will help.
Yeah. Move without pain and without restriction, so you can just enjoy doing the thing you love, which is BJJ.
That's right.
All right, guys, I think we'll leave it there. Now, we have something new.
New feature.
We do.
It's super special.
It is not, I would say that there's only a very small percentage of podcasts out there that do this. And
I think we're the first one.
We might be, but I think we might be opening Pandora's box.
Let's see.
Let's see. So this is actually Joe's adventure. It was a suggestion. We kind of culminated, and I'm going to get you to speak on it now, Joey.
People ask us questions all the time. They come at us on Instagram, Facebook. Fuck it. Just we're in the gym. It's what we do. We provide answers and solutions. We have you can leave us a voicemail and you can ask us a question. And depending on how many we get, we will do an episode where we feature your question and then we respond to it.
Yes.
So, if we get a bunch, we might do a whole episode. If we just get a couple here and there, we might just do one who knows? We'll see how it goes. If you go to bulletproofforbjj.com /podcast, so you just go to our podcast page, all you got to do is just scroll down a touch and you'll see this cool little box to send Bulletproof for BJJ a message. You hit the button and then you speak to your computer or your phone and record your message. You got 90 seconds and ask us whatever, strength, mobility, recovery, sky's the limit, take it wherever you want. And send it to us, and then we'll play it back on the show and give a response to it. It would be really cool. I think something that people don't realize is when they do send us a question on Instagram, usually what they're asking is something that like 10,000 other people who are part of our audience also want to know.
Yes.
Like these questions are like frequently asked questions. So to do it in that way allows us to share the information on our podcast, which means that we can help the maximum amount of people as opposed to just answering it to you through a direct message and then you're the only one that gets the benefit.
That's right. And asking questions helps others, guys. So it's like that moment in class, you're sitting there and the instructor goes, is there any questions? And you sit there and you're like, oh, I don't want to sound dumb in front of everybody. But the thought you are thinking, possibly 5 or 10 other people are thinking the exact same thing. So you are doing our community a service by going to the website. Make sure you're not eating food at the time. Make it clear because we are going to play the audio on the podcast. That's right. Your voice will be on here. And yeah, ask that question, guys, because you are going to save time and energy for everyone else. And we want to hear from you.
Right on, guys. We'll hear you on the voice message.
It's going to be good.
See you next week.
See you guys. Thanks, Joey.